The message traveled across the stars at impossible speed. It reached every corner of the galaxy in less than a day. Every planet under the control of the Velthari Dominion received it at the same moment, on giant screens in city centers, on small devices in the hands of slaves. On the bridge of every warship, the same words appeared. "We come in peace. Let us talk." The message came from a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy, a planet called Earth, a planet nobody had ever heard of before. Supreme. Commander Vexer Thal sat on his throne and watched the message play again. His gray skin stretched tight over his skull as he smiled. His 4 eyes blinked one pair at a time. Around him, his advisors laughed at the strange creatures on the screen. They looked so weak, so soft. They had no armor on their bodies. No claws, no fangs. Just smooth pink skin and small round eyes. "These humans want to talk," Thal said. His voice echoed through the great hall. "How amusing. Bring them here. I want to see these peace-loving creatures for myself." 3 weeks later, a small human ship landed on the Velthari homeworld. Ambassador Miriam Chen stepped out alone. She was a small woman, with gray hair and kind eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with no weapons. Guards surrounded her immediately, their energy spears pointed at her chest. She did not flinch. She did not show fear. She simply smiled and said, "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." The guards looked at each other in confusion. No species had ever thanked them before. They brought her to the great hall where Thal waited. Thousands of Velthari warriors lined the walls. Their armor gleamed under the harsh lights. Their weapons hummed with deadly power. They wanted her to see their strength. They wanted her to tremble. Miriam Chen walked through them like she was walking through a garden. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. When she reached the throne, she bowed her head slightly in respect. "Supreme Commander Thal," she said, "I bring greetings from the people of Earth. We have recently discovered that we are not alone in this galaxy. We have learned about your great dominion. We have also learned about the many species under your rule." Thal leaned forward. "Under our rule? Yes, that is a polite way to say it. Others might say conquered, enslaved, crushed." "I am not here to judge your history," Miriam replied calmly. "I am here to discuss our future. Earth wishes to propose a different kind of relationship." She activated a small device in her hand. A holographic display appeared between them, showing charts and documents. "We propose mutual respect between our peoples. We propose trade agreements that benefit both sides. We propose cultural exchange so we may learn from each other. And we make this promise." She paused and looked directly into Thal's 4 eyes. "Humanity will never raise weapons against the Velthari Dominion. We seek only peace." The hall was silent for a long moment. Then Thal began to laugh. It started as a low rumble and grew into a roar. His advisors joined him. The warriors along the walls beat their spears against the floor in mockery. Miriam stood still and waited for them to finish. "You are entertaining," Thal said when he could speak again. "Truly entertaining. Do you know how many species have come before me begging for peace? Hundreds. Do you know how many of them still exist as free peoples?" "How many?" Miriam asked. "None." Thal stood from his throne and walked down to stand before her. He towered over the small human woman. "None of them. Because peace is for the weak. The strong take what they want. That is the only law in this galaxy." Miriam did not step back. She looked up at him without fear. "Then you reject our proposal?" "I do more than reject it. I give your species a choice." Thal held up one clawed finger. "You have 1 galactic cycle. 30 of your Earth days. Surrender unconditionally. Every human will become property of the Dominion. You will serve us as slaves until we decide you are no longer useful. And if we do not surrender," Miriam asked. Tatcha smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Then we will come to your little blue planet. We will burn your cities. We will poison your oceans. We will turn your world into ash and dust. And we will hunt down every human who tries to escape. We have done it before. Many times. We are very good at it." Miriam nodded slowly. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small recording device. I need to ask you formally, for the record. Is this your final answer? You reject peace and choose war? Thal grabbed her wrist. His claws dug into her skin, drawing blood. She did not cry out. Yes, he hissed. This is my final answer. Go back to your planet and tell your people to prepare for death. Miriam looked at the blood running down her arm. Then she looked back at Thal. Her eyes had changed. The kindness was still there, but something else had joined it. Something cold and hard and ancient. I will deliver your message, she said quietly. And I hope you remember this moment, Supreme Commander. I hope you remember that we came to you with open hands. We came offering friendship. We came in peace. She pulled her arm free from his grip and walked toward the exit. Every warrior in the hall watched her go. Not one of them moved to stop her. At the door, she paused and looked back one final time. Humanity has been at war with itself for thousands of years, she said. We have killed millions of our own kind. We have invented weapons that can destroy entire cities in a single flash. We have committed horrors that would give your bravest warriors nightmares. And through all of that, we have learned one truth. What truth? Thal demanded. That peace is precious. That every life matters. That war should always be the last choice, never the first. She took a breath. But we also learned something else. We learned how to win. Then she was gone. Her ship lifted off from the Velthry, homeworld, and began its journey back to Earth. As soon as she crossed out of Dominion space, Miriam opened a secure channel to Earth Command. This is Ambassador Chen, she said. Her voice was steady despite the blood still dripping from her arm. Protocol Omega. They have chosen. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the mountains, a group of generals listened to her message. They looked at each other with grim faces. One of them, an old man with scars on his face and sadness in his eyes, pressed a button on the console before him. Understood, Ambassador. Come home. We will be ready. He turned to the others in the room. Begin the transformation. Humanity tried peace. Now we prepare for the alternative. Across the planet, messages went out to every nation. Factories began to change their production. Scientists stopped their research and started new projects. Soldiers who had retired long ago received calls asking them to return. Humanity had shown the galaxy its kind face. Now, it was time to show them the other side. The side that had survived ice ages and plagues and world wars. The side that never gave up. The side that Thal would soon learn to fear. Final message from Earth. We tried peace. Now you'll meet the other side of humanity. Part 2. The warning they ignored. Velthry scout ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the human solar system. Commander Crick stood on the bridge of the lead vessel and looked at the distant blue dot that was Earth. His mission was simple. Watch the humans. Report their military strength. Find their weaknesses. Begin scanning, he ordered his crew. The scanners swept across the solar system. They searched for warships, for orbital defense platforms, for weapons satellites. They found nothing. Commander, his sensor officer said with confusion in her voice. There are no military vessels anywhere. No defense systems. The humans appear to have no space-based weapons at all. Crix blinked his 4 eyes in surprise. That cannot be correct. Scan again. They scanned again and again. The results were the same every time. Earth floated in space completely undefended. The only ships moving around the planet were small transport vessels carrying goods between continents. They have accepted their fate, Crix said slowly. They know they cannot fight us, so they are not even trying. He sent his report back to the Velthry homeworld. Supreme Commander Thal received it with great pleasure. He had expected the humans to build some pathetic defense that his fleet would easily destroy. But this was even better. They had simply given up. Send the advance fleet, Thal commanded. Take their planet. I want human slaves working in our mines within the month. 500 Velthry warships began their journey to Earth. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Together, they could burn the surface of any world clean of life. They had done it many times before to species that resisted the Dominion. Back on Earth, Ambassador Miriam Chen stood before the United Earth Council. The leaders of every nation sat in the great circular chamber, their faces lit by the soft glow of screens showing data and maps. They had all seen her report. They had all heard Thal's ultimatum. They rejected peace, Miriam said. They laughed at it. They see kindness as weakness. They see mercy as foolishness. They will not negotiate. They will not compromise. They will only take. President Adebayo of the African Union spoke first. Then we have no choice. We must defend ourselves. But do we have to become like them? Asked Premier Jong of the Eastern Coalition. If we fight back with the same cruelty they use, what makes us any different? Miriam pressed a button, and the screens around the room changed. They began showing footage that every person on Earth had learned about in school. Images of trenches filled with dead soldiers from the First Great War. Cities burning under bombs in the second. The mushroom cloud rising over a Japanese city. Mass graves. Concentration camps. Villages destroyed in conflicts that most of the world never even heard about. This is what we do to ourselves, Miriam said quietly. This is what we do to our own brothers and sisters, to our own children. We know war better than any species in this galaxy. We have practiced it for 10,000 years. The room was silent. Many of the leaders looked away from the screens. The images were too painful to watch. But we also know something else, Miriam continued. We know how to stop. We know how to put down our weapons and build, instead of destroy. We made that choice. We chose peace because we understood the cost of war. She turned off the screens. The Velthri gave us no choice. We offered them friendship, and they chose violence. Now we must show them what happens when peaceful people are forced to fight, the council voted. It was unanimous. Earth would defend itself, in a secret facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. General Marcus Webb received the council's decision. He was an old man now, with white hair and deep lines on his face. He had fought in the last great conflict on Earth 30 years ago. He had lost his wife and daughter in that war. He had sworn never to fight again. Now he put on his uniform for the first time in decades. It still fit. He had kept himself ready, even though he hoped he would never need to be. Status report, he said to his staff. A young officer brought up a holographic display. All hidden platforms are ready, sir. The fleet is standing by in the deep construction zones. Weapon systems are charged and waiting. Webb nodded slowly. And the message? Ready to transmit on your order? The Velthri Advance Fleet crossed the orbit of Neptune. Their commanders were relaxed and confident. This would be the easiest conquest in Dominion history. The primitive humans had no idea what was coming. Then their communication systems lit up with an incoming transmission from Earth. On every screen aboard every Velthri ship, images began to play. They showed human history, but not the peaceful parts. Not the art and music and scientific discoveries. They showed the other side, soldiers charging through clouds of poison gas, bombs falling on sleeping cities, nuclear explosions turning day into night, tanks rolling over fields of dead bodies, guerrilla fighters hiding in jungles, attacking armies 10 times their size, siege warfare that lasted for years, chemical weapons, biological weapons, weapons that had no purpose except to cause suffering. And then came the voice. It was Miriam Chen's voice, calm and steady. People of the Velthri Dominion. This is what humanity does to itself. These are conflicts between brothers, between people who share the same planet, the same blood, the same history. We have killed hundreds of millions of our own kind. We have invented new ways to cause death and destruction that no other species has ever imagined. The footage continued. It showed the aftermath of battles. Cities reduced to rubble. Children crying over the bodies of their parents. Soldiers with empty eyes who had seen too much. We stopped. Miriam's voice continued. We chose to stop. We built a new world based on cooperation instead of conquest. We reached out to you with that same hope. We offered peace. We begged for it. We showed you the gentle side of humanity. The footage ended. The screens went dark. You refused. You chose war. So now we must show you the other side. A final image appeared. It was a simple question written in the Velthari language. This is what we do to people we love. Are you certain you want to discover what we do to those who threaten our children? The Velthari commander stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he laughed and turned it off. Primitive propaganda, he said to his officers. They are trying to scare us with ancient history. Their wars were fought with metal projectiles and chemical explosives. They have nothing that can touch our shields. His officers agreed. The fleet continued toward Earth. They passed the orbit of Mars. Earth grew larger in their viewports. The blue and green planet looked beautiful and defenseless. Then something strange happened. Every light on Earth went dark. Every city, every building, every vehicle. The entire planet fell into shadow. The only light came from the sun reflecting off the oceans. And then the transmission stopped. All communication from Earth ceased completely. The Velthari fleet sent messages demanding surrender. No reply came. They sent threats. Silence. They sent warnings that they would begin bombardment if the humans did not respond. Nothing. The planet just floated there in the darkness, silent, waiting. For the first time in his military career, the Velthari commander felt something cold in his stomach. It was not quite fear, not yet. But it was the beginning of doubt. What are they doing? He whispered to himself. Nobody answered. Because nobody knew on Earth, in the darkness, 8 billion humans waited. They did not speak. They did not move. They simply prepared. The other side of humanity was waking up. Final message from Earth. We tried peace now. We'll meet the other side of humanity. Part 3. The Silence Before Thunder. 7 days passed. The Velthari fleet hung in space between Mars and Earth, waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. The blue planet remained dark and silent. No lights, no signals. No signs of life at all. Commander Vrak paced the bridge of his flagship. He had conquered 12 worlds for the Dominion. He had destroyed species that had weapons far more advanced than anything humans had shown. But he had never experienced anything like this silence. Send another message, he ordered. His communication officer obeyed. The message demanded immediate surrender. It threatened destruction. It promised mercy if the humans cooperated. No response came. Just like the previous 100 messages, perhaps they are all dead, one of his officers suggested. Some kind of disease or internal conflict. Vrak shook his head. Our sensors show heat signatures. There are billions of them down there. They are alive. They are just not speaking. On the Velthari homeworld, Supreme Commander Thal grew impatient. He sent message after message demanding updates. He wanted to know why his fleet had not begun the attack. The humans are playing some kind of game, Vrak reported back. They went dark the moment we arrived. We cannot determine their defensive capabilities if they show us nothing. Then attack and find out, Thal commanded. I am tired of waiting. Begin the bombardment. Once their cities start burning, they will talk. Vrak received the order with mixed feelings. Part of him was relieved to finally take action. Part of him was still troubled by the silence. But orders were orders. He instructed his fleet to move into attack position. Meanwhile, deep beneath the mountains of Earth, General Marcus Webb watched the enemy fleet on his tactical display. Red dots representing Velthari ships moved closer to the planet. He counted them carefully. 500 warships. Enough firepower to burn every city on Earth to ashes. They are entering bombardment range, reported Captain Sarah Kim, his second in command. Webb nodded slowly. How are our people? Ready, sir? Every city has been evacuated to the underground shelters. Non-combat personnel are secure. Our forces are in position. Webb looked at the young captain. She was only 30 years old. She had never known war. She had grown up in a peaceful world where conflicts were solved with words, not weapons. Do you know why we went silent? He asked her. She shook her head. To confuse them? Partly. But mostly, it is an old human tradition. In ancient times, before a great battle, warriors would sometimes go quiet. They would stop talking, stop moving, stop everything. They would go inside themselves and prepare their minds for what was coming. He turned back to the display. 8 billion humans have spent the last 7 days preparing, not just their weapons, their spirits, their resolve. They have said goodbye to the people they love. They have made their peace with whatever gods they believe in. They have accepted that some of them will not survive. His voice grew harder, and they have decided that it does not matter. They will fight anyway, because their children deserve a future. Because their planet deserves to remain free. Because some things are worth dying for. Captain Kim swallowed hard. The Velthari have no idea what they are facing, do they? No. They think they are attacking a primitive species that gave up without a fight. They have no idea what humanity is capable of when we have something to protect. Up in space, the Velthari fleet completed its formation. Commander Vrak gave the order to begin bombardment. Energy weapons powered up across 500 ships. They aimed at the largest population centers on Earth: New York, Beijing, Mumbai, London, Lagos, Sao Paulo. Fire, Vrak commanded. Brilliant beams of energy lanced down toward the planet. Each beam carried enough power to vaporize a city block. Together, they should have turned entire metropolitan areas into craters of molten glass. The beams hit the atmosphere, and something impossible happened. They bent, they scattered. They dissipated into harmless light that spread across the sky like an aurora. What? Vrak stared at his screen in disbelief. Fire again. Maximum power. They fired again. The same thing happened. The planet's atmosphere seemed to absorb their attacks like water absorbing raindrops, Report Vrak demanded. What is stopping our weapons? His science officer studied the readings with growing confusion. There appears to be some kind of field in the upper atmosphere. It is redirecting our energy attacks. The technology is... I do not recognize it, Commander. It should not be possible. Far below, in his underground command center, General Webb allowed himself a small smile. Project Aurora had worked. The atmospheric shield had been humanity's first secret project after they detected alien signals decades ago. It had taken 50 years and the combined effort of every nation on Earth to build, and the Velthari had no idea it existed. Phase 2, Webb ordered. Reveal our teeth. Across the planet, the ground began to move. In the Sahara Desert, sand fell away from massive doors that had been hidden for years. In the Pacific Ocean, platforms rose from depths so deep that no one had thought to search there. In the mountains of every continent, sections of rock slid aside to reveal metal structures underneath. In the frozen wastes of Antarctica, ice cracked and shattered as enormous weapons emerged from concealment. The Velthari sensors went wild with alerts. Suddenly, where there had been nothing, there were thousands of contacts. Weapons platforms, launch facilities, ship hangars, an entire military infrastructure that had been completely invisible until this moment. And then the ships came. From beneath the oceans, from inside hollowed-out mountains, from underground bases that reached down for miles, human warships rose into the sky by the hundreds, by the thousands. They were sleek and dark, designed not for exploration or trade, but for one purpose only. War Commander Vrak watched his tactical display fill with red contacts. His mouth opened, but no words came out. This was impossible. The scouts had reported no defenses. The humans were supposed to be primitive. A new transmission reached his ship. This time, the humans were speaking. It was a simple message, broadcast in every language of every species the Dominion had ever conquered. Millions of slaves across the galaxy heard it at the same moment. Now, you will meet the other side of humanity. General Webb stood in his command center and watched his fleet rise to meet the enemy. Behind him, screens showed similar scenes from every continent. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this day. They had hidden their strength. They had played the part of helpless primitives. They had begged for peace not because they were weak, but because they understood what would happen if war began. Now war had begun. All ships, Webb said calmly into his communicator. This is General Webb. The enemy refused our offer of friendship. They threatened our families. They promised to enslave our children. They gave us no choice." He paused and took a breath.
Ow!
Show them what that choice cost them. Show them what happens when you threaten everything humanity loves. Show them the other side. The human fleet accelerated toward the Velthary formation. Weapons began to charge with a sound like thunder rolling across the heavens, in the space between two worlds. The most important battle in human history was about to begin, and the Velthary, for the first time in their long history of conquest, were about to learn what fear truly felt like. Final message from Earth. We tried peace. Now you'll meet the other side of humanity. Part 4. The Wrath of the Peaceful. The first Velthary warship died in less than a second. One moment it was there, a massive vessel bristling with weapons. The next moment, it was a cloud of expanding debris, torn apart by something that moved too fast to see. Commander Vrak screamed orders at his crew. Shields to maximum. Return fire. All ships engage. But his orders came too late. The human fleet did not fight like any enemy the Velthary had ever faced. They did not form neat lines and exchange fire. They did not follow predictable patterns. They swarmed. They darted between Velthary ships like angry insects, striking from angles that should have been impossible. The second ship exploded. Then the third. Then 10 more in rapid succession. Vrak watched his tactical display with growing horror. Red dots representing his ships were disappearing faster than he could count. The humans were not just fighting. They were hunting. On the bridge of the human flagship Resolve, General Webb coordinated the battle with calm precision. Decades of studying Velthary tactics had revealed their weakness. They were conquerors used to overwhelming primitive species with superior numbers and firepower. They had never fought an enemy that could match them. They had never learned to adapt. Humans had spent their entire history adapting. They had fought wars in jungles and deserts, in mountains and cities, on land and sea and air. They had invented new tactics for every environment. Now they brought that creativity to space. Third wing flank left. Fourth wing, draw their fire. Fifth wing, hit them from below while they are distracted. The human ships moved as one, responding to Webb's commands in perfect coordination. But they also improvised. When a Velthary captain tried something unexpected, the human captains facing him adjusted instantly. They did not wait for orders. They saw a problem and solved it. The Velthary could not understand it. Their rigid command structure meant that every decision had to come from above. When Vrak was slow to respond, his ships were slow to respond. The humans had no such weakness. Captain Kim appeared at Webb's side. "Sir, we have intercepted Velthary communications. They are panicking. Some ships are trying to retreat. Don't let them," Webb replied. "We planned for this. Close the escape routes." The human fleet had positioned ships behind the Velthary formation before the battle even began. Now those ships moved to block any retreat. The Velthary were trapped. On the Velthary homeworld, Supreme Commander Thal received reports with increasing disbelief. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Dominion, was being torn apart by creatures he had dismissed as primitives. He watched footage of human ships destroying his vessels with weapons that bent the laws of physics. He saw his commanders falling one by one. "How is this possible?" he demanded. Our scouts reported they had no technology, no weapons, nothing. His advisors had no answers. They could only watch as the greatest military force in the galaxy crumbled in the midst of the battle. The Velthary transport ship was disabled and boarded by human marines. The soldiers moved through the corridors with terrifying efficiency. They did not hesitate. They did not show fear. They cleared room after room until they reached the bridge. A young Velthary officer found himself staring down the barrel of a human weapon. He raised his hands in surrender, his whole body trembling. "Please," he said in broken standard. "I surrender." "Why are you doing this? Why are you so violent? You said you wanted peace." The human soldier lowered his weapon slightly. He was a young man, barely older than the Velthary he faced. His name was Private James Cole, and before the war he had been a schoolteacher. "We do want peace," James said quietly. "We wanted it more than anything. We came to your leaders with open hands. We offered friendship. We offered to share everything we had. Do you know what your Supreme Commander did?" The Velthri officer shook his head. He laughed. "He grabbed our ambassador's arm and drew blood. He told us to surrender or watch our children burn." James's voice grew hard. "Our children. Do you understand what that means to humans?" "I know. I do not. We love our children more than our own lives. We would die for them without hesitation. We would kill for them without mercy. Your Supreme Commander threatened the one thing we will never allow anyone to harm." James gestured for the Velthri to stand. "This is who we are. We are the species that hates war most because we have seen what it does. We know the cost. But when someone threatens our families, we become something else entirely." The Velthri officer was taken prisoner along with the rest of his crew. They were treated well, given food and water, given medical care. The humans did not torture them or execute them, even though the Velthri would have done both. This confused the prisoners more than anything else. These humans fought like demons but treated their captives with kindness. It made no sense. Back on the Velthri homeworld, Thal made a desperate decision. He sent out a call to every ship in the Dominion. Every planet under his control received the same order: send everything. Every warship, every transport, every vessel that could carry a weapon, converge on Earth. If 500 ships could not defeat the humans, then 5,000 would. If that failed, 50,000. He would empty his empire of military forces if he had to. He would not lose to these primitives. The message reached across the galaxy. Ships began to move from 100 different worlds. The largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history started its journey toward one small blue planet. General Webb received intelligence reports about the incoming armada. The numbers were staggering. Even with their surprise victory, humanity could not defeat such a force in direct combat. He smiled grimly. "Good. He is committing everything. That is exactly what we wanted." Captain Kim looked at him with surprise. "Sir, how's that good?" "We barely survived the first fleet." Webb pulled up a galaxy map on his display. Small dots of light appeared on hundreds of worlds throughout Velthri space. "Do you know what we have been doing for the past 50 years, Captain? Besides building ships and weapons?" She shook her head. "We have been making friends. Every species the Dominion conquered, every slave population, every resistance group fighting for freedom. We found them. We contacted them in secret. We shared our technology. We shared our tactics. We gave them hope." The dots began to blink. One by one, they changed color from red to green, and we made them a promise. When the time came, when the Dominion sent its fleet away from their worlds, we would all rise together. Kim stared at the map. Across the galaxy, on every conquered planet, the same message was being received. The same signal was being given. "Now is the time," Webb said softly. "Now they all rise." Across the Velthri Dominion, chaos erupted. Slave populations that had been peaceful for centuries suddenly attacked their masters. Weapons that had been hidden for decades appeared in the hands of rebels. Ships that the Velthri thought they controlled turned against them, and at the center of it all, humanity stood ready. Webb turned to his officers. "Send our fleet to meet the incoming armada. We will not hide anymore. We will not run. We will face them in open battle and show the entire galaxy what humanity is capable of." Straightened his uniform and looked at the stars through the viewport. "Let us end this properly. Final message from Earth. We tried peace. Now you'll meet the other side of humanity." Part 5. The New Galaxy, though. Largest fleet in galactic history surrounded Earth. 5,000 Velthri warships hung in the darkness of space, their weapons pointed at the small blue planet that had caused so much trouble. Supreme Commander Thal had come himself this time. Commanding from his personal flagship at the center of the formation, he broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. Every screen on every world showed his face as he spoke. People of the Dominion, watch carefully. Today, humanity dies. Their little rebellion has been amusing, but it ends now. I will personally oversee the destruction of their planet, and when Earth is nothing but dust, I will hunt down every human who escaped. I will erase them from existence. Let this be a lesson to any who dare challenge the Dominion. On Earth, 8 billion humans watched his message. They did not panic. They did not flee. They simply waited for General Webb to give them their orders. Webb stood on the bridge of the Resolve, surrounded by his command staff. The tactical display showed the overwhelming enemy force. By any logical calculation, humanity should not be able to win this battle. The numbers were simply too great. But humans had never been good at accepting what was logical. "Open a channel to all Allied forces," Webb commanded. The communication officer nodded. "Channel open, sir. Broadcasting to all resistance groups across the galaxy." Webb took a breath and spoke. "This is General Marcus Webb of the United Earth Defense Force. The moment we have waited for has arrived. Thal has brought his entire military to our doorstep. That means his empire is undefended. You know what to do? Cross the galaxy on 100 different worlds." The signal was received. Resistance fighters who had been waiting for years finally had their chance. On Velar Prime, the first world the Dominion had conquered, the original species still remembered freedom. They rose from their slave quarters with weapons that humans had smuggled to them over decades. They attacked their guards with a fury that shocked the Velthari. On Crick's Station, the largest Velthari military base, engineers that the Dominion had forced to maintain their ships triggered explosives hidden in the reactor cores. Dozens of warships were destroyed before they could launch. On the Velthari homeworld itself, in the capital city, a group of rebels that included members of species from across the galaxy attacked the government buildings. They broadcast images of their uprising to every corner of the Empire. Thal received reports of the rebellions with growing horror. His fleet was here at Earth. His troops were here. There was nothing left to defend his territory. "It is a trick," he snarled. "The humans cannot have organized all of this. It is impossible." But it was not impossible. It had taken 50 years of patient work, 50 years of secret communications, 50 years of sharing technology and tactics, and, most importantly, hope. Humanity had shown the conquered species that the Dominion could be defeated. They had proven that even the mightiest empire could fall. Ambassador Miriam Chen stepped onto the bridge of the Resolve. She was old now, her hair completely white, but her eyes still held that same combination of kindness and steel. "I have a message for Thal," she said. Webb nodded and opened a direct. Channel 2, the Velthari flagship. Thal's face appeared on the screen. He looked older too, his gray skin pale with stress, his 4 eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "What do you want, human?" Miriam stepped forward. "Supreme Commander, 50 years ago, I came to your throne room with an offer of peace. You grabbed my arm. You drew my blood. You laughed at me." She held up her arm, showing the faint scars that still remained from that day. "I told you then that we came with open hands. I told you that we wanted friendship. I told you what humanity was capable of becoming when we had to fight. You did not listen." "No." She lowered her arm. "Now your fleet is surrounded by enemies it cannot see. Your empire is burning. Every species you've ever conquered is rising against you. And it all started because you refused to accept peace." Thal's face twisted with rage. "Then we will destroy your planet and use it as a warning to all others," Miriam said calmly. "You will not. Because even now, after everything you have done, we are offering you one last chance." The words shocked everyone, human and Velthari alike. "Surrender," Miriam continued. "Withdraw your fleet. Release your slaves. Accept peace. And humanity will spare your people." Thal stared at her for a long moment. "You would show us mercy? After we threatened to destroy you?" "Yes, because that is who we are. We do not want to exterminate your species. We do not want revenge. We want what we have always wanted, peace. A galaxy where all species can live together without fear." General Webb stepped forward. But understand this, Supreme Commander. This is your final offer. If you refuse, we will destroy your fleet. Then we will help every species you conquered to free themselves. Your empire will end today. The only question is whether your people survive it. The silence stretched for what felt like hours. Thal looked at the faces on his bridge. His officers were exhausted and afraid. His fleet was surrounded by enemies. His empire was crumbling. For the first time in his long life, Supreme Commander Thal had no choice but to accept defeat. "Ah!" "Very well," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "We surrender." The war ended not with extinction, but with liberation. Human ships escorted the Velthari fleet back to their homeworld. Resistance forces across the galaxy secured their freedom. Slaves who had known nothing but chains for generations walked free under open skies. A new galactic council was formed, with representatives from every species that had suffered under the Dominion. Earth was given a seat of honor as the founding member. Ambassador Chen, now very old, gave the opening speech. "We did not seek this role," she said to the assembled delegates. "We did not want war. We came into this galaxy hoping to find friends. Instead, we found an empire built on cruelty and fear. We had two choices: accept slavery or fight for freedom." She looked at the diverse faces before her, beings of 100 different species, united by their shared experience. "We chose freedom, not just for ourselves, but for all of you. Because we believe that every being deserves to live without fear. Every species deserves to control its own destiny. Every child deserves to grow up in peace." On Earth, General Webb retired from military service. He returned to his small house in the mountains and spent his days teaching young people about history. Not just human history, but the history of all the species they had helped to free. One day, a young alien girl, a member of one of the formerly enslaved species, asked him a question. "Why are humans so kind to us now when you were so scary during the war?" Webb knelt down to look her in the eyes. "Because we have seen what happens when kindness fails. We know the cost of war better than anyone. We hate it. We fear it. That is why we fight so hard to end it quickly when it begins. But if you hate fighting, why are you so good at it?" Webb smiled sadly. "Because we practiced on each other for thousands of years. We learned every terrible lesson there is to learn about violence. And we decided that we would never let anyone else go through what we went through." He stood up and looked at the sky, where ships from dozens of different worlds were arriving for a peace celebration. "We chose to be kind because we understand cruelty. We chose to be peaceful because we understand war. That is the other side of humanity, the side we hoped we would never have to show." Years later, a monument was built on Earth. It listed the names of every human and allied soldier who died in the Liberation War. At the base of the monument, carved in stone, were words that Ambassador Chen had spoken at its dedication. "We chose peace. When peace was denied, we chose each other. Let this stand as a reminder that humanity will always offer friendship first. But we will never abandon those who need our help. And we will never stop fighting for a galaxy where all beings can live free, and across the stars, on 100 different worlds." People of 100 different species looked up at the same night sky and remembered the day that a small blue planet changed the galaxy forever. Not through conquest, not through cruelty, but through the simple belief that peace is always worth fighting for.